What's up, everybody? Welcome to another episode of Yala, your thrice weekly podcast where we talk about the hottest news with a touch of what, Terence?
Good old humor.
Good old humor, man.
Yeah.
Good old humor.
It's one of those episodes that, I mean, this one's going to be a very big discussion that we're doing. This is one of those episodes, right?
I guess it's a big discussion amidst big discussions. Like, it's one of those episodes where there's almost too many topics to talk about.
And it's when we literally had to give ourselves like more time. Let's delay the recording slightly so that we have a bit more time to research and read up and everything like that.
Yeah. And I mean, partly also because, Parliament session just happened yesterday, but also because our last podcast was with a guest, Dr. Jason Leong.
Yeah.
So I did feel like withdrawal symptoms of not talking about the news, no? Because I found, right, if we don't record this podcast, right, my knowledge about current and social affairs just goes to zero.
Basically, your intellectual curiosity doesn't carry you beyond having to deliver an episode of this podcast, right?
Exactly. Like, I think it was yesterday or Monday when we were talking about some current affairs with someone else. I was like, oh my God, I don't know that. I didn't read about it. So I mean, the nice thing is that, this Yalabat keeps me super informed, but the moment you take it away, right, I just become an ignorant dumbass.
Just like, I mean, the truth is, the only things that really allow me to keep in touch with the news also are like, people discussing shit on Reddit and people getting outraged on, all those like Wake Up Singapore or TikTok kind of platforms. Yeah. So other than that, I also I wouldn't also be, so closely following everything, because I think, if you keep following everything, you're gonna end up like depressed or suicidal or something, man. There's so much tough news out there every day.
Yeah. I mean, I will say that just now when you started your sentence with the truth is, I thought you were gonna don't fucking say that. The truth is, you're an ignorant dumbass in most situations. Yeah, so at least you didn't say that. At least you didn't say that.
I applaud you for your honesty in just not sounding like as if you keep up with everything and all that, because that's impossible for anyone, right?
Yeah, it's impossible. It's impossible.
Yeah.
And also, I think this past few days, a lot happened. Since last Friday with the bombshell of Tin Pei Ling and Grab, then yesterday, Parliament. So, we've got some hot topics to talk about.
Yeah.
But before that, what would you like to plug, Terence?
I think it's a big shout out to everyone who's already subscribed to our newsletter, Just Try Only. To recap, it's every week of the newsletter, we take one of the topics that we dissected on our podcast, and we offer two different perspectives on it. Perspectives based on what we have read, but also interesting articles that maybe give a bit more insight into why we're talking about those perspectives. So, one thing that I think is awesome about the newsletter is that regardless of us not being around or traveling or getting married or anything, or even not even featuring in a Yalabat podcast because we're away, the newsletter has consistently gone out every single week, right? Since inception. So if you haven't subscribed already, what are you waiting for? Jump on the bandwagon and just try only. Yes.
Okay. And I mean, even if you don't want to hear about our perspectives, we consolidate all the one Shiok things. So you no longer need to go into the link of the episode description and all that. All the one Shiok things will show up in your email.
Yeah. Or I think some people have mentioned that they're having a lot of trouble downloading or listening to our podcast sometimes for some reason. I mean, we've been trying to fix the problem, whether it's with our podcast service provider or within Spotify. There's the option. So, there's the option to read about what we're talking about via this newsletter, or just have it appear in your inbox and you can look at it from there.
Yeah, but still listen to the podcast, lah. Don't just abandon the podcast. Yeah, just better fucking listen.
Do your best.
Better fucking listen. Yeah, do your best.
Everyone do your best. Yes.
Everyone do your best. Cool, man.
Yeah.
Okay. Yes.
Let's jump right into it. Big topic.
So I mean, today is Wednesday, 8th February, and for the first topic, it is a topic that was debated in Parliament on Monday and Tuesday for a total of 12 hours now. 12 hours. It was two motions. I think all in all, maybe 10 MPs spoke, and that motion concerns housing.
Yes.
housing. So more specifically, there were two motions that were filed. And one was by the National Development Minister Desmond Lee, and the other was by Progress Singapore Party (PSP) NMPs Leong Man Wai and Hazel Phua. And I think the latter came about because Leong Man Wai, I mean, this housing topic and land costs and BTO prices and resale price hikes and all has been debated quite a while. I think Leong Man Wai and Sim Ann sparred on Facebook for a while, and then Leong Man Wai said, okay, I'm going to file a motion in the next parliament. And lo and behold, parliament came and they talked about it a lot.
12 hours, man. Yeah. I heard Parliament, the session only ended like after 11 p.m. on Tuesday night, which, for a lot of older folks, 11 p.m. is way past the bedtimes already, right? So it's pretty intense, yeah.
Then Tan Chuan Jin didn't take another video of him eating filet-o-fish.
No, maybe no sponsor from McDonald's this time.
No sponsor from McDonald's.
They're too busy plugging the quarter pounder, the recently
the new one, right?
Quarter
that's
pounder.
Back.
Yeah, that's back. Yeah, but yes,
okay,
it's a big topic about housing.
Yeah, so I mean, I have a lot of tabs open, and I don't know if you have tabs. I know you have your laptop in front of you, but what are the things that just stuck out to you from memory from the discussion? The high level things.
I guess the interesting things here are that Leong Man Wai, PSP, filed a motion that essentially was trying to say that okay, let me go back again. I think the two motions that were filed by Desmond Lee of PAP and Leong Man Wai of PSP, both of them are talking about making housing affordable and accessible for Singaporeans, right? But I think the PSP one is saying that the government is not doing enough and more needs to be done. The PAP one is saying that we will continue to try and make housing affordable and accessible for Singaporeans. So very slight difference in that sense. But PSP, in fact, more than just saying doing more, they also put forth two very distinct plans to try and reset the housing system. So they use the word reset. So it's really,
reset.
You think about it, fundamentally, a reset is something you do when you feel something is really broken, right? And that's what they're pointing out here, that they do feel that it's broken and that we should use this opportunity of the pandemic being over and everything to reset the housing policies. So that definitely will spark debate. And so that was one of the most immediate things that stuck out to me when I was reading about this. How about you? I know for you it's we've talked about, hey, shall we talk about housing and all that? We've always felt like that it's such a huge topic, very complex, hard to get answers. So why is it this time you felt, okay, it's an interesting topic to discuss?
I mean, because, okay, so when I was researching for this, you see a lot of clips online about, Desmond Lee, Indrani Raja, Pritam Singh, Leon Pereira, and a lot of MPs, just sharing their thoughts on this. But I was thinking, okay, wait, how many things were discussed? But it all tied back to those two different motions, and it was anchored mainly by Desmond Lee and Leong Man Wai. So same thing, I mean, for me also, what stuck out, if I look at it at a high level, and what I guess people should know is that it was all around the two proposals that Leong Man Wai put forth to reset the housing system. And all the other contributions by the ministers were either trying to understand more about either of those two or just shitting on it.
Mocking. I would say even mocking it.
Yeah, and just shitting on it. Mocking on it. So I mean, the two things that he did propose, one is the accessible, the affordable home scheme. So by and large, what I understand, what he's saying is that the land cost for any flat that is purchased is deferred. And you only pay if you...
BTOs. For new BTO flats, right?
Yeah, for new BTO flats, correct. New BTO flats. So you only pay for you don't pay for the land cost when you buy it. But when you choose to sell it, that is when you pay for the land cost. After your minimum occupation period, the MOP. So I think it's paid for the land cost at the time of acquisition plus with accrued interest. So the rationale there is that if you buy a BTO and you choose to live in it for the rest of your life, you're not gaining from it, and you're not profiting from the value of the land, and it makes it a lot more accessible for you. And I think the example gave was a Telok Blangah flat that is priced at 350K. If you take away the land cost, it comes down to 140K. Yeah. So that was one. Of course, we will dive into it a bit more. And the second one was the millennial apartment scheme, where he proposed that a bunch of quality flats, and I guess quality, it means like the prime locations near the CBD, right?
Yeah,
they'd be made available for young couples and groups of Singaporeans to rent for 2 to 5 years at affordable rates. So basically, that whole slew of new prime BTOs, prime HDB BTOs.
Yeah.
What he's suggesting is a portion of those be kept solely for rental. Solely for rental.
Yeah.
It's basically like Hamlet, like one of those co-living spaces, right? But government funded.
Is it Homelet or Hamlet?
Hamlet.
It's HAM.
HMLET. Homelet.
Homelet. Maybe this is an omelette. You're saying Hamlet. I'm saying Homelet.
Homelet. Yeah, like when they came up with that name also, right? I'm like, okay, I get the domain name for Homelet, maybe not available, but Homelet. Like how would you say it? Yeah, if you are talking about your company and you say, oh, my company's name is Hamlet.
Yeah.
What are people going to search? HAMLET, right?
Yeah. That's right. Yeah.
And if you say Homelet, HOMLET.
Yeah.
So and then if you're like,
there was a trend at one point where startups are basically removing the vowels from their names, right, to sound cool.
Oh yeah, correct.
In retrospect, it's only two kinds of people did that, startups and gangster rappers, right?
Correct.
And now it hasn't aged well, these kind of names.
Yeah. So like Hamlet, Homelet, and then people like me will be Hamlet.
Yeah, exactly.
Right. What are you going to search for? So it's Hamlet. Okay.
Yeah, Hamlet.
So Hamlet.
Yes.
Yeah. So this is like a government Hamlet.
Yes.
Government Hamlet. So those were the two things that he put forth. So how should we do this? Should we like talk through what the responses were from the respective MPs, or how were you thinking about it?
Maybe just thinking about it, just talking about these two at their face value, right? Because I think perspective. Because I think if we just start going into what the other MPs described it as, maybe we're not giving it the time of day in terms of like trying to understand what they're proposing as well, right? Because it's still as seductive or as simple as it sounds. There's still a layer of complexity about it that I was still trying to wrap my head around even this morning before we recorded the podcast. So my understanding, like what you mentioned about Telok Blangah flat for the first scheme, right? This affordability homes scheme, right? Was basically that you only are paying for the construction costs and maybe a little bit more, plus when you buy the BTO, right? So in the example, it was the flat is valued at $350,000 in Telok Blangah, including land costs. But under this new scheme, you would only pay about $140,000 for the construction costs plus a little notional value, he calls it, like you mark up a little bit, right, for wherever the location is and all. And then you never actually have to top up that remainder for the land cost unless you decide to resell your flat after your minimum occupation period of 5 years or what, right? So that's what they're saying. That means technically, you could buy this BTO from a very young age and pay only $140,000. And if you just decide to live in the BTO, build your family in it for the rest of your life, you never have to top up the amount. But if one day you decide, okay, I want to upgrade to a bigger private property or something like that, then you would need to put your flat in the open market. And at the same time, you would need to pay HDB back for that land cost. plus whatever accrued interest there is based on historical data, right? Like the additional $200,000 or so that, and plus interest over time is accumulated at the point of sale, right?
Yeah.
So that is essentially what that scheme is proposing. Am I leaving out any details that are important for understanding it?
I mean, I'm just looking at the detailed write-up on leongmanwai.sg.
Yes.
This is on the website.
Yes. I also just learned that, he has the leongmanwai.sg.
Leongmanwai.sg.
Yeah.
I'm like, fuck yeah, man, you go, dude.
Yeah.
Leongmanwai. So I think the one thing that you're saying about, buying, like he did break it down into the user price and the notional location premium, lah. Yeah, so basically what he's saying, I mean, it's worth a read on that website because he says some things about it which I didn't know before and I haven't fact checked it yet, but okay, assume that it's in the motion he sent to Parliament that it's correct. Apparently this was based on a deferred land cost idea first proposed by Dr. Tan Meng Wah in 2013 when he was a researcher at the Institute of Policy Studies at NUS. So the good idea was in the public domain, lah. So yeah, going back to the scheme, basically you buy a flat, you pay a user price equal to construction cost, and then a notional location premium that still takes into account where in Singapore it is, lah.
Yeah.
And apparently this user price also was a concept suggested by Mr. Yeo Lam Kiong, who was a former chief economist of GIC.
Yes.
So I mean, one thing like that I guess is the supposed merit of this is that you don't have to use up your CPF to pay for your house, because like right now I bought a resale, right? I'm using my CPF, right? But it's also emptying it out, lah, so this one is like if you choose to stay in your house for the rest of your life, you have more balance in your CPF for retirement and all that, and if you don't sell it, it doesn't bump up the prices of the homes around you, lah. So I mean, okay, so you were saying what our thoughts are, like, right? So I am by no means a housing expert. I am by no means an economist, but I am a homeowner just from like 2 years ago. And when I read this, right, I guess this is the danger for PAP. When I read this, right, it makes sense. Without understanding the macroeconomic impact, I know whether it's a raid on national reserves, which was something that the PAP MPs came back with. I'm like, hey, shit. If he sells it, he pays for the land, so the national reserves will still be topped up. Sounds okay. And it's all these plans, right, that sounds okay, right, which might be fundamentally flawed. But if it sounds okay to lay people like me, right, then the PAP better figure out how to rebut it adequately, lah. So that was my take, hearing it and reading it without diving into the nitty-gritties, lah. But what about you?
Yeah, that's why I use the word seductive, lah, right? It does sound...
it's seductive.
Seductive because it sounds like, it makes sense, that we're encouraging people to, stay in their homes longer, and only if you have the means and you're really looking to sell your HDB and move to private property or whatever, then you have to think about how much it costs, lah. And then, obviously there were a lot of PAP rebuttals on it, and even Leong Man Wai himself in his speech, he was already preempting everyone, saying that he knows that he's going to get a lot of rebuttals, literally saying that he's raiding the reserves, lah, right? So it's almost like he knows that he's this lightning rod of attention from the MPs, really. And so some of the PAP MPs, I think we mentioned earlier, there were a lot of responses. And, some were, really trying to talk through the economic points of it. And others seem to be almost like mocking, right? Like, I think one of the PAP MPs, was it Sito or what, was literally saying that he wanted to sing some lyrics of some song. To characterize how he was feeling about it. And I think Speaker of the House had to tell him, no, please don't, But it was just a lot of resistance to the idea, lah. But which one of all the MPs that spoke up against what Leong Man Wai was saying, was there anyone in particular that really stood up more to you?
Let's see. I mean, there was one by Denise Pua.
Yes.
You know, there's a
Interesting
clip
one.
that
Yeah.
is went online, and like I encourage everyone to watch it because she was kind of I don't really get what exactly she was getting at, but this is one of those things that felt like it was mocking lah, because she literally said, okay, so in her spiel, and no matter what her spiel was about, right, the only thing I remember is this lah, and she said, okay, you know that Telok Blangah flat, yeah, okay, if it's 350, it comes up to 140K, which is what
After
Mr.
Leong Man Wai's proposed
Plan.
subsidy, lah, right? Yeah.
Yeah, correct. And then she says, and I quote, I guess it would take just 1 to 2 years of annual pay, and then she clarifies, of one's annual pay to pay up this flat lah.
Yeah.
So, regardless of what she says before or after that, right? At first I was thinking, okay, maybe she was talking about like household income. Okay, household income, 2 years, 70K a year, that's about 6K a month, on average 3. And I was like, okay, I mean, median income is about 3.4, I believe, around there, 3-ish. But then I was thinking like, wait. She's talking about one's annual income and you're not even taking into account expenses, right?
Yeah.
So it's stuff like that, right, that is going to fucking hurt the PAP. Because when I hear that, right, regardless of whether I agree with the affordable whole scheme or Leong Man Wai, I'm like, you know what, just shut up. Just shut the hell up.
Yeah. I saw
so that one stood out to me.
I watched it, and even before the clip was extracted for the internet to make a meme about it, I saw it on the Straits Times page, or Straits Times YouTube, and I was really like, whoa, did she just say that? Did she just literally say that $140,000 can be paid for within 1 to 2 years, by the average BTO home bidder, right? You know, so it's like, there's this implicit assumption in what she's saying, that she's assuming that everyone earns like 70K and upward and up, right? 1 to 2 years, right? 70K and up per year. So I was like, wow, that
no, and that's not even earning 70K. You can't use 100% of your salary to pay off your house, right?
Sure, no, but even no, but I understand that sometimes they have to use metrics.
Hyperboles.
No, they have to use metrics like how many years of median income in Singapore it takes to pay off certain things or to earn a certain amount. Because that's probably the main metric that people can really rely on, right? What median income is and all that. But I think the way that she worded it, that made it, she wasn't even using median income, right? She just somehow pulled out an assumption that, the average BTO bidder is can be able to pay $140,000 loan, whatever, within 1 to 2 years of the income, right? Of their earned income.
Yeah.
So that to me, it really tells you that the range of incomes that she thinks that people the average person is earning, or what the average homeowner is earning, is at least 70K and up, right? So I think that's a huge faux pas, but it also tells you, maybe that's how out of touch people can be when their salaries are a lot higher than what the median incomes are as well, right?
Yeah.
And it reminds me. I don't hide it. Also, I come from a very privileged background as well, and I think there were a lot of things that I said or did in my youth that did not take to account a lot of the privilege that I enjoyed growing up and all that, right? Whether it's like expecting everyone to have made gone overseas for a solo trip or something after graduating from high school or things like that, and this assumption that like even if we travel cheap and everything, why can't you afford just to fly out for like a couple of weeks after you graduate and to go for holiday? So there's all these little things that only years later, as you're an adult and you're working, then you realize, hey, actually, we a lot of at least for me, I come from a very privileged position, and it's wrong to assume that everyone can or is able or even wants to live a certain kind of lifestyle that you've had the privilege of enjoying. So I can totally understand where this faux pas comes from, and it's not that these people are assholes or anything, but literally it's just when you're in a position where you're privileged, it's just much harder to see how normal people are living their lives, right? Yeah. And it's not because they're assholes or because they're evil or anything. It's just human psychology where if you are one of the so-called, between the haves and the have-nots, if you're one of the haves, it is much harder to relate to the have-nots, right?
True. But like, let's say if you say something annoying, like one-on-one, I can say, Terrence, shut the fuck up, okay?
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
And you are not voted into the position of being like my co-host or having to decide policies that affect other people. lah. So
Yeah.
if you want to speak in parliament, don't say stupid shit like this.
Don't say
And
things like that.
this is the problem. I can imagine people listening and saying, oh, but you all are picking only on one thing, But no, okay? Parliament is public. You say this kind of shit, it will bite you in the ass.
Yeah.
It will bite you in the ass, and it kind of it can dilute whatever intelligent argument you're making elsewhere, lah. And yeah, it is a high bar, like, oh, don't say stupid shit in parliament. But sorry, man, you're in parliament. You have to up your game, lah.
Yeah, and never forget, parliament there is an element of theatrics and performance as well, right? There's cameras trained on you. There are literally people who can go in and sit in the gallery and watch you give your speech. So you got everything that you say and that you do, you need to watch very carefully. Don't dig your nose just because you're sitting in one of the backbenchers and thinking that there's no camera on you, whatever. Don't do stupid things like that, lah, right? So yeah, big faux pas. It also very unfortunately takes away from whatever substance of whatever she's saying also, lah, right?
Yeah. So I mean, okay, so to not focus on like individual moments like that, I think a lot of the rebuttals, like let's say from Desmond Lee and Indrani Raja, was that if these prices are that low, in some way there is something's got to give, lah, right?
Yep.
And it will take away from the national reserves, which means that the future generations will pay, or the people around you will pay. I know Indrani was saying that everyone, yes, the person, the homeowner will benefit, but it's paid for by everyone else around them. And she gave the example of like, how would you feel if you just got your BTO, but a few years down the road, someone gets a BTO next to you at a much lower price, lah? How would that feel? You will be subsidizing them.
Yeah.
And I mean, yes, but I don't know, like when she said that also, I'm like, but you go through life, you do realize that like these kind of things do happen, right? Sometimes you benefit, sometimes you don't benefit. I know it's easy for me to say because I got my place 2 years ago. I don't know how I would actually feel, but to use it as an argument, then it can extend to a lot of the other things that PAP has done also, where they suddenly change the policy for this or and people who are impacted, like even the BTOs that in Tanjong Pagar, like before then it didn't take into account the prime location, right? So the people who got that, the appreciation on the value is so high, and you can argue that I got my BTO at the same time, it hasn't appreciated, so what? It's just based on market forces, So when she used that kind of argument, I was like, hey, but I didn't feel like that was that strong a rebuttal. So that was something that stuck out to me. It was about how the future generations and everyone around you would pay for it.
Yeah, I would. One thing I would definitely say is I watched through some of the points that the rebuttals and everything. I think Indrani is a very persuasive speaker, right? I think the way she presents the argument also is very makes you really sit up and listen, right? And she's very eloquent that way. But yeah, I agree with you that argument of like, how would you as a homeowner feel if the block next to you, later, a few years later or 5 years later, whatever, they paid much less for a similar block in a similar location with similar amenities and everything, lah. And like you, I felt there's something about the argument that doesn't make sense. In the sense that what we're trying to do here is, at least I guess the whole point of this whole parliamentary motion is to acknowledge that there are challenges, whether macroeconomic challenges or whatever, there are challenges to keeping housing affordable and accessible for Singaporeans, right? And maybe there were missteps in the past or mistakes made in the past about assessing what demand would be year to year. And if the cost of that is that there will be some people unhappy about changes that need to be made, then that's what governments do, right? Governments have to make decisions based on, not just based on a small segment of people living in a block, the next door block being unhappy, but overall the future, the current and future batches of Singaporeans are. And the problem now is a lot of young people are waiting a long time to get the BTO flats, right? So I mean, wouldn't thinking about them as a whole, thinking about society as a whole, and what kind of like bullets we need to bite, to take a very famous line from Goh Chok Tong, right? What bullets we need to bite in order to try and fix this problem, So yeah, appealing to that kind of appeal to like, oh, how would you feel if something like that happened to you? I feel it's not a very strong argument. And it was very eloquently delivered, but like you, I felt like, hey, that doesn't convince me at all, right? And rather than, it's not so much about debating the merits of the policy or what, but there's a lot to be debated about whatever the Leong Man Wai is suggesting also, right? I think he essentially, we are also that what he's saying, like in Johnny says, essentially is there is going to be a cost a cost to via the depletion of reserves that will be borne by all of Singapore, right? Maybe rather than appealing to the emotions of how you feel about it, but is trying to work through some numbers, or presenting some numbers about how a subsidy like that would affect everyone, because I think that would help to make it a much more robust argument, rather than thinking about, oh, how about the block next door? How will you as the person feel in the block next door when you see other people being able to afford public housing? And then now, especially to me as a parent as well, to me it's like, okay, I mean, there are some sacrifices that we as a generation will have to make to ensure that our kids and all have affordable housing as well, right? When they grow up and get to the age where they want to build their own families and all, because it's just not sustainable for them to really have to fight market forces, and when they are thinking of building a home, right?
Yeah, exactly. So, and I mean, like what you said, like, the numbers, I think it was Sim N who said that it would amount, like, the shortfall, if it were to be implemented, is around 2.3 billion, which means it would be an increase of 1.3% of tax, like, across the board. So, I mean, like how the thing is now with the 1% GST hike, already people are feeling the heat, it's something quantifiable. And if you say that, okay, it's going to increase another 1.3%, you want or not? Then it's something quantifiable. But the thing is, the GST was also increased by the government. So if they say, that thing we did that is making you feel all the heat, imagine if we do it again. So that's why I think this HDB thing, right, is damn important because of the policy, but also because the way the BAP is arguing back now is not convincing, especially to lay people like me. If you want to talk through the impact on the national reserves and all, it needs to be a bit more tangible, because now, even listening to it, it's a lot of like, somebody has to pay, future generations has to pay, is the impact on national reserves. But it's all this talk that is, I'm like, okay, but I'm not really fully aware. And of course, I know they can't reveal everything, but this can be a dangerous thing if they don't pay attention and figure out how to argue. And to this, I salute Leong Man Wai, just standing in the face of all the shit being thrown at him. I think even Murali Pillay, he got quite agitated, and he was, in his closing line, I think he said, if we were nice, we would say Leong Man Wai is naive. If we were honest, we would say he's something else. Then I'm like, what's something else? Like what we said earlier. I think his plan is too seductive. It's almost like hey,
too good to be true, right?
Too good to be true.
So something sounds off about it also, right?
So people might be on the fence, but don't make me jump off onto the fence to a certain side. Because even Desmond Lee, one thing he was saying that Singapore's home price to income ratio, which is something you spoke about just now, like it's basically an index lah. It is a number of years of total household income it takes to pay for a home. It's generally 4 to 5 right now. And then he contrasted this with London, Los Angeles, and Sydney, where the ratio ranges from 8 to 15, and Hong Kong, where it is more than 20. So, I mean, Hong Kong is almost now is a very different country, lah, right? And then for the others, they are cities, no. You live in London, the ratio is more than 20. Fine, you fuck off from London and you go somewhere else within the country. Same with LA, same with Sydney. Singapore, you go where? Go where?
Yeah.
Punggol, is it? But no, right? So those sort of things also, it feels like, hey, that's not that convincing, eh?
Yeah. And that's why housing, I mean, like, I think no city has been able to solve this kind of issue as well, right? Especially the major global cities, right? Real estate prices and higher inflation and everything for all these major cities. But yeah, Singapore, we are in that quite a unique situation where country is the city, is the island. Where else can you run to, right? There's no other options for everyone. That's where it feels like such a pressure cooker for young families, right? Everything that you're paying for is going up in price, higher taxes, whatever. But also, like, you can't. There's not even an option for to live more cheaply in terms of finding a place that you pay less for, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, and then like you, I also think that what Leong Manwai suggested, at the very least, whatever you want to say about the scheme and all, it has kickstarted a very big discussion in Parliament about it, right? And even Workers' Party came forward and said that it's not their motion, but I think they said they are going to support it, right? And so I believe based on the numbers that they voted for PSP's motion as well. And I don't think they disclosed exactly who voted for what, but I believe the opposition actually came together in the show of unity for one of the few times. And even Workers' Party, I think Pritam Singh filed a motion that was basically took whatever the PAP's motion was, but just cancelled out the last sentence and just said that, government needs to intensify its efforts to do what the House is saying that it needs to do, which is make housing affordable, accessible for Singaporeans. So I think that Desmond Lee was like, this is politicking, right? But at the same time, it's it's that kind of like, that kind of like, when at work, then you write a very beautiful like document and everything, then you hand it to somebody for approval, then they come back with one little correction at the end there, like, what the fuck, right? Everything else is great, but this one correction, the mic drop moment needs to have my mark on it.
Then even if Desmond Lee on his paper, he cancelled the mark that Pritam put, the mark is still there, like your teacher underlined in red, you put liquid paper and all, you can still see the liquid paper,
And the motion was rejected.
It was rejected. As in the amendment to the motion.
The amendment to the motion.
The amendment to the motion. But basically, I think what he's getting at, which is true. I mean, essentially he says, and I quote, the government has not adequately acknowledged people's anxieties on housing. And I think that is the crux of everything. You can say all this jargon and tech terms and all that, but people are feeling the heat, man.
And they want you to show that, yes, we know you're feeling that, we know that you guys are struggling, you guys are feeling the heat, right?
Yeah. And I mean, I think, so credit to HDB for saying that, BTO, they've been very public about, how many more BTOs are being built, the timeline will be shortened and all that. So, good. Thanks. Thank you, HDB. But
yes.
I do appreciate what the opposition is trying to do, saying, something needs to change. Because if we go down this path, right, it's going to get tough, man. It is going to get tough.
So, I mean, if you monitor the rhetoric, right, I think if you go online and see, a lot of people are mocking a lot of what Desmond Lee was saying before with the word monitor. Because they said they're monitoring, the prices of HDB and the home prices and everything. I think that was some months ago and all. So everyone was like, what do you mean by monitoring? That doesn't tell me that you're adequately worried about how the population is suffering through this and all that, right? Yeah. But if you look at what Desmond Lee is saying now, I think the tone, the language is quite different. He literally said that, yes, we know the system is far from perfect, right? But let's not jettison everything that has got us to where we are today, and do something and we will continue to try to make things better, right? So if you ask me, at least there is that acknowledgement that you can't say things like, we're monitoring the situation, because it just sounds for anyone who is really going through all these issues, it just sounds like politics speak now, right? Like just telling people to wait, like, yeah, solution will come, don't worry, just wait for tomorrow. So yeah, I mean, HDB also came out and announced certain things, and I think even Desmond Lee was as much as everyone was tearing down Leong Man Wai's proposal, he said that he did mention that it comes with noble intentions. PSP's proposals come with noble intentions, although executed completely, probably he thinks it's executed wrongly, right? So that in some sense, maybe there's some acknowledgement that there are issues. I mean, all these things do matter, right? What kind of language they use, what language they use in Parliament to describe the problem, what they use to describe opposition policies and things like that. So yeah, I'm very glad that this discussion has been kickstarted about the anxieties that Singaporeans face about housing.
Yeah, and I mean, yeah, he did say that, and like when he says that, like what you said, I also feel like, okay, yes, Desmond, I'm glad you acknowledge that, because I love my house, right? I love the estate that I'm in, and I think, wow, public housing, pretty dope. But yeah, it just feels, don't talk down and use all these technical terms and all that, and like, no, man, it is an issue.
Or sing in Parliament or whatever to try and make light of the opposition's arguments, right?
Yeah, and then you also said Desmond Lee said yalla but at some point, is it?
No, I mentioned that in that I think Desmond Lee's, the way he's been characterizing the issue and all, is much more of a, I understand your concerns, but blah, blah, blah kind of thing.
Oh, I thought he said yalla but.
No, he didn't say yalla but specifically. What I meant was in the spirit of like, yes, we acknowledge that the system is far from perfect, but, let's not throw the baby out with the bathwater and everything, right? Which is, I think, he's asking people to be prudent in how they were approaching this issue as well, right? It's a challenge for every city around the world. Singapore has its own unique challenges because of our geography, because of what we are, and we need to be very careful about what we propose, even if it sounds on paper like, oh, that's a great idea, right?
Yeah. I think like off the bat of this parliament also, I think in future, one thing I would also like to propose as a motion, external motion, is that anytime you say a faux pas in parliament, right, you need to take like a 1 year common man internship where you live in the HDB, you take public transport, and you eat at hawker centers for 1 year. You cannot step into a car, you cannot go to landed house, and you live life like that, and then you report back after that.
No, I mean, simple. Suspend the driving license, suspend the driving license for that 1 year.
But they don't, like, some of them, they don't. Okay, so the ministers, I know they don't drive, they have their own vehicles and all.
That means they have drivers or what?
Yeah, they have drivers.
Oh, yeah, okay, I don't know.
For a few that I've seen, for a few that I've seen, for a few that I've interacted. So yeah, just the common man internship, the CMI.
Yeah.
CMI.
The CMI. We might enroll in the CMI program.
Yeah. The CMI program, Common Man Internship. Boom. Yeah. All right, the Common Man Internship.
It sounds like a great reality TV show. You know that TV show from 10 years ago?
Celebrities get me out of here. Get me out of here.
The one where, the boss or the CEO of a large corporation disguises as one of the employees on the ground. They give him makeup, they make him wear the uniforms, and then they go and work for a day or two on the ground. So it would be hilarious if we did a show like that where one of your MPs or what has to, do that, what you say, the common man internship. Just be on the ground, right? Be
on the ground. And don't tell me you Minister of Transport, you take MRT. That doesn't count. People must not know you're the Minister of Transport.
Yeah, you have to be, exactly. You have to be disguised such that your own staff cannot recognize you when you walk in. If you're like, oh, who's this guy? Hey, come here, let me check your bag. Open up your bag. The inside all your parliamentary documents, all this and all that.
Yeah. Then all the profits from the show can go into the national reserves.
Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah, so there can be that one show and that show, I'm a Celebrity, Get Me Out of Here, where they take the celebrities, put them in the forest, right?
Yeah,
you do that with politicians. Like, I'm a politician. Get me out of here.
Get me out of here.
Yeah.
Oh, man. Oh,
two external motions. Yes.
It's a very big, complex issue. I mean, we've barely even scratched the surface of it. Yeah. But I think one thing I do encourage everyone to actually go and not just read it, but also just watch how these speeches were delivered as well, right?
Yeah. And
Yeah,
just
yeah.
try and keep track of it, like, because it's an interesting argument, like. It's an interesting argument.
It is.
And just look for the high level cues, like.
Yeah. But
Cool, man.
from one big parliamentary debate to another, the
Yeah.
surprising thing is our goofy topic is actually also from Parliament this time round.
Yes, correct.
Yeah. And what is it?
And it is the Minister of Manpower Tan See Leng set out in Parliament the plans to commemorate the 100-year anniversary of the birth of Singapore's first Prime Minister, Lee Kuan Yew. So there will be efforts that will be grassroots and ground up. There will be like various grassroots groups have suggested ways to commemorate occasion, conferences, publications, activities to examine his legacy. Business leaders have proposed a fund for private donations, government agencies, and it feels like it's going to be a big thing. Like it's September 16th, I believe.
Yeah, it's 100th
so 100 years since the year of Lee Kuan Yew's birth.
Yes.
So,
Harish, how dare you? How dare you characterize this as a goofy topic? This is a topic about our founding father, Mr. Lee Kuan Yew. How dare you call it a goofy topic? But why do you want to talk about it as a goofy topic?
I mean, I just feel like I'm also thinking, okay, so how should we look at the 100-year birth anniversary of Lee Kuan Yew's birth? No doubt he was influential in shaping the way Singapore grew and what Singapore is today. But I do recall the one thing that hit me when he passed away, and the weeks that followed, right? Where a lot of the things in the media were all about the wonderful things he did. And he did a lot of wonderful things. But I think there was one article that I think you shared of someone in the UK who wrote that as much as when people die, you want to remember their best efforts and best memories, right? For public figures or very influential figures, it is very important that you don't hide the things they did that maybe were not that good. Because it is important to not whitewash our memory of them for future generations, right?
Yeah.
And I remember reading that, I'm like, oh shit, that is a very good point. So when this came up, I did feel like, oh, okay, wait, is it like, wow, what's going to happen? Is it just going to be all celebratory? So I don't know. I don't know how to think about it. I don't know. Because he is passed on. He did do a lot for Singapore. He did do some stuff that it was questionable or arguable. So I don't know, man. That's why I wanted to talk about it. But what about you? What made you agree to this?
Yeah, like you, I'm actually very torn about how to approach something like this, right? Because it's similar. There are parallels between this and the whole Oxley Road saga, in my opinion. I think if everyone can recall the Oxley Road saga, it was basically the children of Lee Kuan Yew, right, including our current Prime Minister Lee Hsien Loong. The children of Lee Kuan Yew basically at loggerheads about what to do with the Oxley Road house, right, where a lot of historic things in Singapore's history happened, right. The meeting of the PAP, the PAP cadre and the founders. This is not founders, sorry, the pioneers of Singapore, right, meeting in the basement of Oxley Road house. And it being not the birth home, but the home of, Lee Kuan Yew and also Lee Hsien Loong's formative years as a child and everything, right? So I think there was a very clear intention by Lee Kuan Yew, or at least it seemed, according to what we know, is that he, of course, there's a lot of back and forth about what actually he wanted, right? But it seemed like he did not want there to be a cult of personality around himself, right? Around his him being Lee Kuan Yew, the founding father of Singapore. He didn't want people coming to worship the house as if he was like a magical being who bestowed glory upon Singapore or anything like that. And part of that meant that he wanted the house to be demolished, right? I think he did say outright like that. And there were arguments about, but this site is a historic site for Singapore, right? It's a historic location. Even if you demolish the house, the place itself is literally the place where the early roots of Singapore were planted, the early roots of independence were planted and everything, right? So in quite a perverse way, in my mind, my after all these years, my understanding of it was that if you want to honor his decision to not build a cult personality around himself, right, around Lee Kuan Yew and his memory, then it also means that you cannot, even after he's gone, you cannot keep deferring to what his decisions, what his personal wants were, right? You also got to think about what's the larger implication of his personal decision on the rest of Singapore. So to me, it was like, okay, if what Lee Kuan Yew wanted was to demolish the house, but if in public interest there is a necessity to keep the house around for historic purposes, for nation building propaganda, whatever, then the idea is to don't listen to him and follow what your parliament says, right?
Yeah.
So it's kind of a you see where there's a bit of like on one hand, I agree with him that we should not have this cult personality. On the other hand, that means we have to defy what he wants, right? What he wanted after his death, . So in some sense, I see that here as well. When I say that is that if Lee Kuan Yew didn't want that cult of personality around him, I think I don't know how he would react to knowing that people are celebrating his 100th birthday or the 100th anniversary of his birth date, right? But at the same time, Singapore, we already, as a country, we're a very young country. We don't have a lot of history to hang our hats on and long stretches of history that we can tell our children about and to be proud of and all that. So if there are stories that we can craft and build around, the founding of Singapore and the understanding how Singapore was became independent and was founded and everything, is that a bad thing, right? To celebrate it, to make it an event, to make it something that not only Singaporeans celebrate, but when visitors to our country come one day and they're, that happened that week I was in Singapore, it was like the 100th anniversary of the birthday of of Lee Kuan Yew and everything, Is that necessarily a bad thing, So that's why I'm still in like kind of two minds about it. Very similar to the Oxley Road issue. That's why I thought it's a very interesting topic.
Okay, so I get what you mean, I get how there can be historical context, and it's still something worth acknowledging, I think for people who maybe grew up like more recently, who don't understand the impact Mr. Lee had, sure. But okay, maybe so at the crux of it, for me, it was weird that this was brought up in Parliament. Like, why Parliament? Because, I mean, okay, it's basically like you have, the Parliament is made up of multiple parties. We have one main party in power. We know that Lee Kuan Yew was the key person of that party for a long time.
Yeah.
So to bring it up in Parliament, what for the opposition also is like, I would imagine if I'm an opposition member, I will agree, but why does it have to be in Parliament where there are lines between us? This one, founding father.
What do you mean lines between us? As in,
I mean, you sit in Parliament. If you're opposition, you are opposition, As much as they're all Singaporean, there's Workers' Party, there's PAP, there's PSP, and all that. So this one put in Parliament, I don't see why it has to be in Parliament. Why can't it be outside of Parliament?
But it's a Singaporean issue, right? Like, I mean, obviously, if it's brought up in Parliament, means there probably will be allocation of public funding to make these events happen and all that, right? So if there's a need to discuss it in Parliament and sort of highlight that these things are happening, why not? I mean, regardless of what party you're in, you also probably have some thoughts about how the founding, the pioneers and everything, and the founding fathers of Singapore and all. So why cannot discuss in Parliament?
Don't know, because it's like, I mean, is it political? Okay, so I get the public funding thing, but are all efforts that use public funds things that are discussed in Parliament? No, what?
Oh yeah, it has to be brought up, right? If it's meant to be a very if it's very contentious, for example.
Like, how big is this going to be? Like SG50 kind of scale?
I don't know. Maybe that's the thing, right? Maybe that's what he need. I mean, you can't just like drop the budget. Like, one day, but you kind of got to just slowly talk about it in Parliament, and then when the budget rolls around, then they announce how much is being spent and things like that, lah. Right?
I mean, okay, if you want to announce in Parliament, at least give a public holiday or something, lah. Okay, that one you speak in Parliament, you know, like that one. Okay, everyone would support no matter what you feel. Like, okay, public holiday, sure, September 16th. So I don't know. It just felt like I still am wrapping my head around, because I agree. Okay, 100 years, quite a big thing, and just the fact that he was born in 1923 already, like, oh shit, that's a long fucking time ago. 100 years ago. But it just felt like in Parliament to bring it up. I don't know, man. I'm still in two minds. Why couldn't it have been done like outside? What was the point? Is there a political angle to it?
There is, for sure. I mean, as okay, I think this is what I think also, is that Lee Kuan Yew is a very revered figure in Singapore, right?
Yeah.
Especially with the older generation and all. And to show that you are trying to honor his memory and all, I think it's a part of the political theatrics. It's a very big move, right? It's telling people that we are a party that affirms Lee Kuan Yew's values and his vision for Singapore, what Singapore was. So that's a big part of announcing that you are doing these things, right? It's kind of like why do you even do things like having when you get married to someone, there's a wedding ceremony and all that, right? This is to you announce it to the world and you let people know that this means a lot to you, right? And if you want, please come and partake in the celebration as well, right?
But Parliament also, like, they talk about, I just had my third kid. I'm getting married next week. No, the moment they start saying that in Parliament, I'm like, shut the fuck up, okay? I don't give a shit.
Yeah. But surprisingly, people have done, commemorated their daughters' birthdays. I think one of the new MPs, right? Remember?
Yeah, I don't care, okay?
Yeah.
The Parliament
that's the thing.
It's
Lee Kuan Yew, but it's Lee Kuan Yew. It's Lee Kuan Yew. He's like, Lee Kuan Yew, honestly, Lee Kuan Yew is one of Singapore's biggest intellectual exports ever, right?
Yeah,
like people outside of Singapore, non-Asian people, everything, they know Lee Kuan Yew. They've seen him. They've seen videos of him giving speech in front of the US legislators and all that as well. So he's a big figure, right? And if that also adds to the law of the founding of Singapore and creates an event around the history of Singapore as well, to me, maybe it's a big thing. It's worth discussing in Parliament. It's worth highlighting in Parliament. It's worth announcing in Parliament and in front of the cameras and in front of everyone else as well.
Yeah, so for political purposes, it's great.
Yeah,
and I guess everything you say in Parliament is for political purposes, lah. So I might just be a snake eating my own tail. But I just felt like, okay. But at the end of it, right, whatever happens, if it really is meant to do stuff towards education, funds for, let me see, the businesses propose a fund for private donations that would support educational causes. If it does a lot for the causes, sure. It just has a feeling of like, it feels like it's going to snowball into like a huge thing that in some way, not to say whitewash, but I'm sure there'll be the flip side, lah. There'll be some sort of commemorating the Operation Cold Store and stuff. I don't know, man. It just feels like, okay, he's also passed on, so talking about it is also making me feel a bit like, I don't know how other people feel. I'm curious to know how other people feel or would feel watching Tan See Leng talking about it in Parliament.
Yeah, I mean, I think, in that sense, I got no qualms about it being discussed in Parliament. The only thing I would actually suggest to them and all is that, maybe make it more about the pioneers of Singapore, right? As opposed to, you can mention on the side that it also happens to be the 100th anniversary, but right now it seems like the celebration is about Lee Kuan Yew and no one else, right? About his 100th anniversary. Whereas I feel like, a lot of the foundations of the country were built on the backs of a lot of people, aside from just Lee Kuan Yew himself, right? Maybe to also fulfill his wishes of not having a cult of personality building around him, but also at the same time reflect that, yeah, he was part of a very big, important movement or a very big, important group of people who helped bring Singapore to what it is also, right?
Yeah,
you
exactly.
don't characterize it as a Lee Kuan Yew 100th anniversary thing, but more as the founders of Singapore. And it happens to be, one of them happens to be Lee Kuan Yew, who is his 100th anniversary of his birthday, right? Yeah.
Yes.
So that to me, it kind of, that's where I'm like you, I also like, not very sure how to feel about this. And I think it's great that businesses and organizations are thinking of ways to commemorate the event by, whether it's through charity and all that. But I think the naming of it is what, the naming of it and the focus of everything is what is giving me a bit of pause, right?
So I guess I'm curious what people think also. Maybe it's just me lah. Maybe I'm just a petty little ass lah.
Maybe all you're looking for are just faux pas that people make in Parliament.
Yeah, faux pas.
Then when they actually say something that is nice and that everyone loves, then you're like, what the hell? There's no scandal here. Nothing interesting.
No, I think one of these days I do want to go down to Parliament.
Yes.
Because we were talking to someone yesterday and he reminded me that, Parliament is free for public. And I think it'd be fascinating to watch, man.
Yeah.
Fascinating to watch. So I will be popping by one of these days.
Yeah.
Cool, man.
Cool. Well,
cool.
A lot of big topics. But yes, let's talk about one Shiok comments that we've come across recently.
Yes. One Shiok comment. So for me on our Yellow Bud Reddit, I love the fact that people are now starting to do polls, even when I forget to do the polls. So there's one poll that is still ongoing, which is, what is the better name for our ship name, Teresh or Herons? Yes. So that's still ongoing. The one that has closed is are you Team Bidet or Team Toilet Paper? Kudos to Majestic Economist 6 for setting this up.
Yeah.
So, the votes are in. Did you vote already?
Yes, I voted, yes.
Yeah. So, the votes, there were 74 votes, okay? 6 put team others. I don't know what the fuck you used to clean your ass. And between Team Bidet and Team Toilet Paper, right, you know the results already, lah.
Yes, I know the results, of course. Yes, of course.
So the winner with an overwhelming 48 votes versus 20 votes is Team Bidet. Team Bidet won. I'm so proud of our listeners. I'm so proud to every bidet user out there, because you guys rock. You guys rock, and you all have clean asses.
Yeah, but I think the issue is that when you say others, right, they should clarify what if you use a mixture of both toilet paper and bidet.
Dude,
right?
Even then, 26 votes. It still pales in comparison. Okay?
No, yeah, but that's the thing. It's not spelled out as that you do a hybrid of both. Because I think some people in the comments are saying that I do a hybrid. That means I use bidet to a point where I think it's okay. Then after that, I still use toilet paper to clean up any.
So then what did they vote? We don't know what they voted. Right? We don't know what they voted.
That's the thing. You see, there wasn't an option for them that was very clear cut about what it was. Look
at the signal. Okay, it's 48 and 20 and 6.
I know, but
so 40 and 26. Even if there's 6 more people, it's 48 and 32. Team bidet by a mile. Okay, Team bidet by a mile.
Yeah, but the whole point of this podcast is about, let's look at, it's not, life isn't binary. You don't choose just bidet or toilet paper. Sometimes you can do a little bit of both, and that's where the nuance comes in your decision-making process, that you don't just classify as others.
Do you use bidet? Have you used bidet often in the past?
Yeah, I do.
Only when you don't have
I'm the hybrid. Now I'm hybrid already. I'm hybrid.
You're hybrid already?
Yeah, I'm hybrid.
I'm hybrid only if I need to go outside where there's no bidet, then I'll use toilet paper lah. So that's my hybrid lah.
No, that's choosing one or the other. I'm saying that if there's the option of bidet, I still will use some toilet paper first. Then after that,
I see.
bidet to finish it up lah, right?
It's like washing like your dish lah after meal. Maybe you scrub off some with a kitchen towel, and then you wash it down.
Exactly. Yeah. Because to me, I don't like the idea of like, it's like you use the bidet, overuse the bidet is like you're taking a bath. Like, it's like, whereas a bidet is just meant to be like a quick squirt, right? It's not like a bath, it's a quick squirt. Right?
At the end of a short bidet session versus a normal bidet session, your ass will still be equally wet, right?
Yes, but see, that's where consideration comes in. And not splattering around everywhere in the toilet bowl being.
Hey, Terrence,
being
okay,
wet
I
and
have already
everything.
amended that in our office toilet. Okay?
So
I
obviously,
already
you know
take-
where my criticism is coming from.
So your squirt is a very gentle squirt, is it?
Very gentle
No, you gotta
squirt,
go
yeah,
full
yeah,
blast, and then you wipe the splash lah.
Yeah, so, but
Which I
you
do,
answered the
which I
question.
do.
You answered the question as to how you do dishes. You don't just like, oh, there's still a sausage. There's still remnants of a sausage on my plate. Let me just use water and just pour over it. Then it still accumulates somewhere, right, in the sink and everything. You
No,
still need to throw it away first. Right?
Exactly, but if there's curry or something, I don't use a kitchen towel to wipe the curry and then use soap and water. No, I just go straight for the water.
Depends on how much work you want to give the poor person who has to clean your dishes and all that, right?
That's me, okay? I clean the dishes in my house, okay? I clean, so I have enough street cred to comment on dishwashing. I clean all the dishes.
Maybe you
Because
should
my
get
wife
your-
does more of the cooking. lah.
Should get your wife's commentary on your bidet habits.
Maybe, yeah,
Put it
maybe.
out there and ask her. Yeah. But yeah,
But-
well, all I'm saying is that there wasn't the option of hybrid that was presented to people. So I don't feel it's like a super accurate representation of everything. Lah.
Okay,
Yeah.
but there is a winner. There's a clear winner. You cannot
Yeah,
deny that.
It seems like people want to use a bidet, which I
Seems
think is
like,
good.
dude, accept it.
Yeah,
accept
yeah.
it. Okay, now you are trying
You
to
want
be
to
like
use the
Desmond Lee
bidet.
like that.
Yeah. No, the intentions are noble. The intentions are noble, but we need to look very carefully at the data before we make any decisions. Yeah.
Okay,
But
can,
yes.
can. What about you, man? What's your one
But
shot
one shot
thing?
comment actually is also
One
from
shot
Reddit, but very related to a problem that people seem to be having with buffering issues of the podcast. Lah.
Yeah.
I think the latest episode of the Jason Leong one, like Maximum Crest 8888, was saying that they were looking for this podcast because I'm a fan of Jason Leong, but I'm having issues loading the
Oh,
podcast in
shit.
Spotify. Anyone else has this issue, and then but later Maximum Crest comes and says, my workaround is I downloaded the episode in Spotify. Took a long time to download, but eventually it played smoothly. So Maximum Crest has come up with a workaround for people who are facing this issue. Like, I think you can set for podcasts to automatically download, like new episodes to download, such that when you want to listen to them, it'll be there on your phone ready for you to listen already. Lah. So at least one other person has tried it and said that it's a good workaround. Lah.
But at the same time, I mean, we are looking into it. The last time, okay, it might be a good problem that we are getting too many downloads for our podcast hosts, and we either need to upgrade our plan or something. So I think it's a good problem, and we are definitely looking into it. Please don't give up after 5 minutes. I think like Mano official said he gave up after 5 minutes. Have the faith. Okay, have the faith. We will fix it. We will fix it.
Yeah, that's right.
Cool. Cool.
But yes.
And
So
one
what
shook
is your
thing.
one shook thing to accompany your one shook comment?
My one shook thing is the recent articles that have come out talking about the Singapore women's chukball team. Chukball? Is it chukball? So I mean, I saw it actually like last week, but there've been more and more articles written about it, and I think it's great lah. Like they are number one in the world. They beat the traditional powerhouses Chinese Taipei in a competition last week, and yeah, it's awesome lah. And like a lot of these people who are like part-time players, they schedule their own training. They like it's almost self-run lah. So the national coach is also part-time. So it just feels like, hey, shit, like that's pretty awesome that in a sport that is played not just in one country like American football, or we're number one in the world lah. And I think it's great to see these kind of things happen. It's great that there's more attention on them. And yeah, do we need to be number one in football? No, but for sports like this, we need to support them all we can, man. So
actually, what is chukball specifically? Do you know?
So chukball.
Can you describe what the sport is?
From what I understand, it's more like it's almost like a handball where there are two teams, they play in a court, there's a ball, but instead of scoring a goal, there's like this inclined square net at both ends, and the goal is to bounce it off and catch it back without the opponent getting the ball.
Okay.
So you run, you avoid, and then you bounce it, and then that's how you score points.
Okay.
So it's an indoor sport. It's played in like indoor courts and all. I think in badminton halls and all. So interesting. I never knew the sport existed until now. But just shout out to the women's team, man.
Interesting.
Yeah.
I didn't even know that of this sport before, at least what it's called and everything. That's why it's interesting to find out.
But yes, what about you?
My one Shiok thing is just, I think there's been an article going around and some videos of, I think in Portugal, there has been a new world record broken. And it's a very important world record. Is Bobby Purebred Rafiro do Alatenyo? I think that's a dog breed. Becomes the world's oldest dog on record at 30 years old. So there's literally a dog that is 30 years old living in a tiny village in central Portugal. So there's been, I think he broke a record that was from 1939 of a dog that lived until it was 29 years old. So this dog being 30 years old is now officially the world's oldest dog recorded in history at 30 years old. So it's pretty crazy because the owner, the owner was 8 years old when when the dog was first born, and now he's 38 years old. I'm guessing he's 30 years old and now they're still living in this tiny village in Portugal together, and it's crazy because you look at the dog and you can't tell that it's 30 years old. It's still walking around, running around freely, exploring the countryside and things like that So it's a pretty crazy. I never knew that the record was more than almost 100 years old already, and that it will be broken by a 30-year-old dog.
Wow,
for context, dog. A lot of dogs, once they get to like 15 and all, it's you're considered really old already, right? And usually that comes with a whole host of like health problems as well, like you can't walk or like having trouble seeing. But you look at the videos of this dog, he's like looks well and healthy, man, at 30 years old. That's crazy, right?
So you think it's true, like it's not a fraud or a fake?
I mean, we take it for what it is, Don't be so cynical, Oh no, like a dog world record also, you want to also call that out.
Now you know how it feels like when someone shits on your one Shiok thing, right?
No, it's not a one Shiok thing. You're shitting on like a dog. No. You're shitting on a 30-year-old dog, a senior pioneer generation dog.
Yeah, so this is what will happen in Parliament if anyone were to say, I think we are putting too much funds towards Lee Kuan Yew's 100-year thing. They're like, you're not shitting on the commemoration, you're shitting on Singapore. The founding father of Singapore.
Yeah.
Just say, I'm happy for the dog, man. I'm happy for the owners, happy for the dog, happy for you, man.
I think that, also, if you read a bit more, they ask the owner, what do you think is the secret of his longevity? He says that being close to nature, because they are right next to, farms and nature and everything. And so the dog has never been like chained or even kept on a leash, and they always let him eat whatever healthy food, human food they're eating as well, right? And that if there's anything that's also more a reminder that nature, being close to nature, eating healthy, eating natural and all that is good for us, regardless of what kind of animal you are.
Sweet, man.
Yeah, pretty crazy.
Cool.
But yes.
Cool. All right. That was a slightly long one, but thanks for listening, everybody.
Thanks.